The movie begins in suburban Oklahoma where a reserved teenager named Calvin Cal Chetley lives with his mother Sharon, spending most of his hours buried in books and studies, which earns him real academic success. At school, Cal keeps to himself and has almost no friends apart from his neighbor Luli, who he's grown up alongside, and his awkward classmate Donald, who's even worse at making friends than Cal is. And although Cal shares a warm, close bond with his supportive mother, deep down he aches for a male figure in his life. When Cal was only a toddler, his father, the great wrestling champion Mac, died in a tragic car accident, so Cal never really got to know him. He's too young to recall the details, but he understands one thing clearly: his family never recovered from that loss. Cal's older brother Mike, who had followed in their father's footsteps to become a multi-year wrestling champion himself, was shattered by Mac's death. Mike and Mac had done everything together: training, scouting, dieting, the whole journey. But as the years passed, time didn't soften Mike's grief. It slowly destroyed him. He began clashing with Sharon, who despite her own heartbreak was trying desperately to hold the family together. Eventually Mike moved out and vanished, never to be seen or heard from again. Crushed by losing her son on top of her husband, but overwhelmed by everything on her plate, Sharon let Mike go, quietly praying that time might heal them both and bring them back together one day. As the years go by, Cal absorbs the world around him and grows into an observant, responsible young man who'd rather spend time with books than with kids his own age, and it pays off. In middle school, he wins a geology competition. But instead of blowing the prize money the way most boys his age would, Cal does something remarkable. He starts a catfish farm, which becomes successful enough to support both him and his proud mother. One day, while fishing at a local lake and quietly trying to repair a broken water pump for his farm, Cal is jumped by the school bully Billy Barrow. Angered that Cal even tries to defend himself, Billy shoves him to the ground and runs off. As Cal nurses his wounds, an old fisherman named Red appears, seemingly out of nowhere, to commend the boy for standing up for himself, and quietly advises him to always believe in himself and never back down. Cal heads home and tends to his bruises. Then, the way he always does when he's feeling low, he opens his memory box and lingers over old photographs of his father, the car accident report, wondering how different his life might have been if Mac had been around. Spotting Sharon returning from work and determined to hide his pain from her at all costs, Cal quickly stuffs everything back into the box and rushes out to greet her. As they hug, Sharon is horrified to see his injuries, but he insists it was just an accident and that he's fine. Meanwhile, a few counties away in Muskogee, Mike is working on an oil rig when he gets bad news. He's being let go. Over the following days, the more Cal thinks about Mike and his late father, the more he misses them, and a desperate longing to connect with them takes hold. After a lot of soul-searching, he lands on the one thing that ties him to both of them: wrestling. But knowing everything Sharon has been through, knowing how much she's grown to hate the sport, Cal keeps the idea to himself. For the next few weeks, he tells his mother he has after-school activities and starts going to the school gym. But instead of joining the team right away, he simply sits back and studies the practice sessions intently. He shares his new interest with Luli, who's always had a crush on him, and he's grateful for her support. One day, Cal finally takes the next step and steps onto the mat. The coach pairs him with Billy and tells the bully to go easy and show the newcomer a few things. Instead, Billy treats it as a license to attack and brutally beats Cal until the coach steps in, noticing the clear history between them. That night at dinner, unable to keep lying, Cal admits he's started wrestling and has begun dieting to hold his weight at 135 pounds. Sharon understands his need to feel close to his father and to Mike through the sport, but she's terrified nonetheless. She watched it consume the two most important men in her life. She reminds Cal that he hasn't seen his brother in nearly a decade, that he doesn't know Mike the way he thinks he does, and warns him never to count on Mike to help him reconnect with their late father. Cal turns his mother's words over in his mind but struggles to accept them. Hoping she's wrong about Mike, he tracks down his brother's address and decides to visit. He tells Sharon he's staying at Donald's and catches the bus to Muskogee, his head swimming with a million questions about what it'll be like to see his brother after all these years. He finds the house, is let in by one of Mike's friends, and steps inside, but it goes nothing like he imagined. Mike is taken aback to see his little brother, but that's about it. No warmth, no emotion, just a flat question about what he's doing there, as if Cal were a stranger he passes every day. Cal absorbs it and instead of getting angry, gives his brother the benefit of the doubt, reasoning the surprise reunion must be hard on Mike too. After some stiff small talk, Cal shares that he's joining the wrestling team and asks Mike for help, certain that with the right training he could be good. Mike turns him down, saying he's just too busy right now. Heartbroken, Cal walks out and heads home, wondering if his mother was right all along. And Mike, equally gutted to realize he has nothing to offer his brother, sits frozen on the couch for hours, thinking about the man he's become. Desperate to save her youngest, Sharon goes to the school and pleads with the coach, telling him she's already lost one boy to the sport and can't go through it again. The coach comforts her and, advising against pulling Cal off the team, promises to look out for him. Across town, crushed by the encounter with Mike, Cal rushes to the lake to clear his head, runs into Red, and pours out what's bothering him. A few days later, at a school wrestling meet, the 135-pound wrestler gets injured and Cal panics. He's the backup in that exact weight class. Forced into it, he calls Mike's house but only reaches his girlfriend, so he begs her to tell Mike he'll be wrestling that Friday. Cal hopes to hear back before the week is out, but Friday arrives without a single word from his brother. At the weigh-in, Cal whimpers in fear at the sight of his opponent and starts doubting his decision. Sharon, despite her opposition, decides to show up and support him, and as she walks to the gym, she passes the school's wall of fame, sees Mike's name and trophies, and stands there lost in memories of her firstborn. Then, exactly as Cal feared, he's brutally beaten and loses. Once he realizes how hard wrestling really is, he thinks about quitting, but he's cornered. He's the only 135-pounder on the team. Match after match, he keeps getting beaten and humiliated on the mat. Back in Muskogee, now jobless and out of prospects, Mike goes to a local bar to kill time. An aggressive man picks a fight and hits him, and Mike defends himself well, but the authorities don't bother examining the details, and Mike ends up in jail. Hoping for some perspective, Cal asks Donald to assess his wrestling, only to be told he hasn't competed in enough matches to even officially qualify as the worst in the region. As the boys leave school, Billy ambushes them, mocking Mike's fall from grace in front of everyone, and handing Cal a local newspaper announcing his brother's arrest for assault. Stressed, Cal heads to the lake to fish and clear his mind, where Red offers him a piece of wisdom, that if Cal needs his brother, then his brother needs him just as much. Inspired, Cal wakes early the next morning, borrows Luli's scooter, lies to his mother that he has to get to school early, and races to the courthouse in Muskogee. There, Mike's lawyer lays out the situation and asks the court for probation on Mike's behalf. As the judge weighs the case, Cal asks to speak for his brother and gives his word that the court will never see either of them again. Mike is deeply moved by the gesture, and afterward the brothers go back to his place to catch up. Hoping to make up for all the times he wasn't there, Mike finally agrees to teach Cal how to wrestle. Meanwhile, after not hearing from Cal all day, a worried Sharon checks the school gym, panics when he isn't there, and reaches out to Luli for information, coming up short. Cal gets home, lies that he was out with friends, and shuts himself in his room. After missing weeks of practice, which forced the team to forfeit a match in his weight class, Cal returns to the gym, where the coach warns him that one more screw-up and he's done. Mike and Cal begin training, working intensely over the next couple of weeks. As they grind together, they get to know each other and start genuinely enjoying each other's company. With his passion reignited, Cal follows every instruction to the letter and throws himself into mastering each part of the sport. Noticing Mike still hasn't found work, Cal takes it upon himself to land him a job through his geology class, something Mike deeply appreciates since he's not used to that kind of help. The brothers keep growing closer. Hoping to show Mike what he's learned, Cal invites him to the next match, but Mike gently explains he isn't ready to face their mother, or the locals who will ask what he's been doing since his glory days, questions he has no answers for. On match day, just as Mike taught him, Cal confidently stares down his opponent at the weigh-in, then finds a quiet corner, puts on his favorite music, and grounds himself. As Donald, Luli, and Sharon watch in anticipation, the match begins. And now stronger than ever, Cal puts everything together and wins comprehensively. Unable to stay away, Mike quietly slips into the gym, hides in the hallway, and watches from afar. And like Sharon and Luli, he's overjoyed at Cal's win. On the other side of the gym, Red has also come to watch, sitting unassumingly in the crowd, cheering Cal on with pride. Hoping to stay hidden, Mike leaves before the match ends, but the halls of his old school haunt him with memories of his own achievements. Over the next few weeks, Cal keeps racking up wins. Mike keeps showing up in secret, and seeing how good his brother is getting, Mike starts dreaming bigger, hinting he might even teach Cal the difficult reverse cradle. As the school dance approaches, Luli asks Cal to take her, and he happily accepts. At home, though she's attended every match, Sharon senses their relationship growing strained and reaches out to reassure her son she's always rooting for him. Cal understands and tells her how happy he is, but to spare her any more distress, he hides that he's been training with Mike. Mike then introduces Cal to a wrestler named Theo Knott Henderson, bringing him onto their training team. And over the next weeks, Cal trains relentlessly, follows his diet strictly, and visibly gains strength. On the day of the dance, knowing Luli lives with her father and 4 brothers, Sharon invites her over for some quality girl time, helping with her hair and makeup and offering motherly advice, to be confident, and to let herself be chased rather than chase. During training, Not pulls Mike aside to check where his head is, and wanting only the best for his friend urges him to keep working, stay out of trouble, and fight off his inner demons to become the man he used to be, for the sake of the little brother who looks up to him. Proud of Cal's progress, Mike finally decides to teach him the tough reverse cradle, and the brothers spend hours drilling it. That night, Cal takes Luli to the dance, but just as they start enjoying themselves, Billy approaches and begins harassing her. Despite Luli's attempt to defend herself, Cal steps in and shoves the bully to the ground with ease. The two leave the dance, walk around town talking about the night, and Cal assures Luli he'll always be there for her, and the two begin a relationship. Back in Muskogee, after weeks of hard work, Mike decides to unwind and heads to the local bar for a beer. But moments later, he remembers the trouble from last time and the promise he made to the judge and to himself, and without taking a single sip, he pays his tab and leaves. The instant he steps outside, a group of men holding a grudge over their friend's beating surround him. Mike tries to defuse it to protect his parole, but it's no use. As they attack, he's forced to defend himself, dropping a couple of them before he's knocked out. The next evening, Cal travels to Muskogee to train, only to find Mike nowhere in sight. Without overthinking it, he assumes Mike is busy, trains alone for a couple of hours, and heads home. But the moment he walks in, he freezes. Sharon is on the phone with Mike, and an intense argument erupts. As it heats up, Cal once again defends his brother, insisting Mike would never let him down, that he must have been set up, that there's no way he'd have been drunk since he hasn't touched alcohol in a month. Then, to Sharon's horror, he reveals that Mike has been secretly teaching him, and that Mike is the reason behind his success, because he's his brother, and Cal has every right to know him. He demands to know what Sharon is so afraid of. While Mike sits in jail cursing his luck, Cal and Sharon spend hours on opposite sides of the house, cooling off. Thinking it through, Cal realizes all the family's buried pain traces back to that one fateful accident, and he decides to talk to his mother about it. Sharon grows emotional at the mention of her late husband but gathers her courage and tells the story. Mac was Mike's trainer, and the two did everything together. About a decade ago, as they prepared for an upcoming match, Mac was confident in his son but agreed to Mike's suggestion to drive to the next town and scout the opponent. Despite Mac's reluctance and Sharon's plea to stay home, the two set out, lost control in the snow, and crashed. Mike was thrown clear and survived. His father died inside the car. As the story sinks in, the fragmented pieces of his family finally click into place for Cal. He sympathizes with his mother, still not fully healed, but most of all his heart breaks for Mike, who's carried such crushing guilt and grief all these years, and he finally understands the hollowness behind his brother's eyes. A few days later, Cal and his team head to Tulsa with their coach for regionals. Meanwhile, Cal's words linger with Sharon, and she decides to give Mike the benefit of the doubt. She tracks down witnesses from the bar, confirms Mike was sober and set up by his attackers, then works with the DA's office and his parole officer to cut him a deal. She visits Mike in jail and admits she wants her son back, but doesn't yet know how. In Tulsa, cheered on by Donald and Luli, Cal wins all his matches and reaches the semifinals, but with his brother's case weighing on him, he can't celebrate and leaves his friends to head home. Back in Muskogee, having secured Mike's release, Sharon drives him home, steps into the shabby, cold place her son has imprisoned himself in, and is devastated. Realizing all Cal ever wanted was to bring the family together, she finds the courage to tell Mike he doesn't belong there, and embraces and comforts her hurting son for the first time since the tragedy. That night, Cal rushes home to ask about Mike's case, and is relieved to learn his brother is free. Then, to his surprise, Sharon, after hearing about his regional success, encourages him to keep going. The next day at regionals, Cal slips off to a quiet corner to ground himself as always. But this time the silence makes him realize he never truly cared about wrestling for its own sake. His whole journey was about something far greater, healing his broken family. With both Sharon and Mike nowhere in sight, he suddenly feels like a failure and questions why he's even preparing for the semi-final when he's apparently failed at the one match that mattered, bringing his family back together. He grabs his things to leave, only to run into Red, who's come to watch and tells him simply not to quit. Inspired, Cal washes his face and his fears away, and returns to the mat. Scanning the stands, he spots Sharon with his friends and is relieved but devastated by Mike's absence. A flood of questions overwhelms him. Where's Mike? How could he miss the biggest match of his life? Did the last few weeks mean nothing? Distracted, Cal gets heavily beaten in the first period. Then he looks up and is stunned to see Mike walk in, proudly wearing the team's colors and taking a seat. That's the push Cal needs, and he overpowers his opponent to win. In the break, as the final is announced, Mike rushes over to congratulate Cal alongside the coach, and the two old acquaintances share a warm reunion. Mike tells Cal to stay focused and give it everything, then leaves him to his music to prepare for the biggest match of his life. Mike and Sharon meet, and as they head back inside, Luli approaches with a giant gift box, asking Mike to give it to Cal before the match. Mike and Nat carry it to the locker room, where Cal opens it to find a small pump and a personalized robe, deeply touched. When his name is called, Cal dons the robe, and escorted by Mike and Nat with Donald's help, makes quite an entrance. As he prepares to step onto the mat, Cal notices Mike greeting Red from across the gym and wonders how his brother knows the old fisherman, then gets the shock of his life. Red was his father's coach all along. As the final gets underway, Mike takes a seat beside the coach and is welcomed back by the wrestling world over the PA system. Cal gives the match everything he has, and the whole gym holds its breath through every move. But after a few brutal minutes, his opponent wins by decision, and Cal misses out on the title. And yet, as far as Cal is concerned, he's already won. He finally has a united family. Overflowing with gratitude, he rushes to thank Mike, then Sharon and Luli. Some victories, it turns out, are about the journey and not the result. As Mike joins his family in the stands, the crowd rises in a standing ovation, respectfully acknowledging everything he gave to the sport, and Mike, moved, takes it all in. Moments later, to everyone's surprise, even Billy congratulates Cal on his accomplishment, which Cal accepts with genuine sportsmanship. Seeing this heartwarming outcome and reassured that the Chetleys will be just fine, Red quietly slips out of the gym and heads home, finally at peace, having fulfilled the promise he once made to Mac to watch over his family. And with Mike by his side, Cal goes on to win 48 matches in his senior year.